Cool. All right. So we discussed me being in Tennessee, Jim. Where
Yeah.
are you?
So I'm in New Jersey. I'm about where am I? I'm about 5 miles in from the ocean, kind of dead in the middle of the state, pretty much. In my studio.
Okay.
Yeah, in my studio, which is an old 2-car garage behind my house, which the former owner, which is been deceased. I've been here 20 years, so he's been long deceased. But used to work on cars out of this place. So that's how it. That's how they sold us on it. It was, I was studio space, and it had heat. So as I wasn't really looking to do anything. My wife was kind of thinking like, maybe we'll move, and we had looked at a few places. I mean, this is 20 years ago, and I was kind of done with the process when the realtors show you things that you said you aren't interested in and don't want to look at.
Yes.
And then this was like, wait, look at this, one more, and I was like, ooh, look at that studio. Okay, let's pull the trigger. So they suckered me.
Oh, cool.
But I mean, I say that, but it's good. It's good. Yeah. So it's a good size space, and as I said, not something I was specifically looking for at the time, but it's about 22 by 24 in size, I guess. So yeah, so it's all right, and especially when you see those or read those stories about somebody like Pollock, who was working in a smaller space, I found out, than this, and making way bigger paintings than this little 8x10 thing I've got cranking away at.
Yes. Okay, so the image that you chose for us is a campfire. Is this by your house or on your property?
No, it's not at all. Not at all. I'm kind of I gotta say though, I'm kind of a nerd for campfires. I've got a wood stove here in my studio, and I have a wood stove in the house, and so I really kind of dig them, and chopping wood and pretending I'm a lumberjack in the backyard here. But no, this was up in the Adirondacks in New York State about I want to say just about a month ago. My brother and I, for 20 years this year, have been going on motorcycle trips together every summer. So, we'll hit the road for like 10 days. And, this year with COVID and all that kind of stuff, we know a guy who has like an old dining hall, mess hall from a Boy Scout camp that was since abandoned. And he let us stay there. So, yeah, super cool. So this was right there up in the wilds of the Adirondacks.
That's great. That is a cool area, and when I've been up there before, I've seen a lot of motorcycles and people up there on bikes. And so, have you ever been to Sturgis before?
And I haven't. Okay. And I don't think I would love to get out that way, but not during that. I really have a passion for motorcycles. I've ridden them since I was 19 or so, and I love them. I love being out there. I love being on the road, meeting people, doing that, but not to the point that I would be in a place where everybody's probably going to talk about motorcycles and only motorcycles.
Gotcha.
And nothing else. And I'm not a huge crowd person anyway. I love getting out and meeting people, love traveling and meeting people, but love to be able to do kind of what we're doing now and have a little bit more of a one-on-one conversation and kind of get to know somebody and get to learn a little bit about them. It's kind of hard to do in a giant crowd, right?
It is, and this is really interesting too because we don't have a lot of outside annoyances and other people kind of cutting in. and conversations can kind of afford to be circuitous and somewhat tangential, and then it's okay because you kind of half of your brain is concentrating on the paint you're putting on too.
Yeah, which is really cool. I got to thank you for inviting me to this actually, because it's really I've been looking forward to this since I woke up today, because it's kind of, since as I said, I work for an art materials company, and I do a lot of things with their education program. So I have like other artists who go out and do demonstrations at, well, not now, but do demonstrations at colleges and things like that.
Okay.
And I used to be a art professor years ago. So it's nice to be able to sit here and paint, but I'm not sitting here and having to explain to you what I'm doing and my process. I mean, we could a little, right? But we could chat about those things, but it's less shop talk, which is
I think most of the crowd anyway who is watching this is probably familiar with some form of painting, or they paint themselves. So I think sometimes shop talk can get in the way, and I like to leave the side-by-side videos as more of a visual conversation, and then have the audio maybe be something completely different.
Yeah, right. No, I'm with you. I like that's exactly what intrigued me.
Cool.
Yeah, actually, because I think I've been doing so much stuff for work where it has been instructional. I think if you said, hey Jimmy, I want you to come and talk about the difference between this pigment and that pigment, I'm like, man, Chris, I think I'm kind of busy, and then I'd have to make up something that I was busy doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is way cooler to me, and kind of fun, 'cause I don't get to paint with people a lot.
Neither do I.
Yeah, it's really kind of cool. I'm actually watching what I'm doing, but then I just for the first time I look down and see where you're at, and it's kind of kind of cool. I mean, that's mostly due to me. I gotta admit, meaning, like if I was to, if we were close in geography and I was to say, hey Chris, I'm thinking of painting on Saturday morning at 8:00, and you said, hey Jimmy, I can't make it then. You want to do 10:00? I'd probably be like, nah, I'm good. I'm going at 8. I kind of like my own schedule.
Okay.
Yeah, which is a little selfish, but it's like I wouldn't put you in the position to have to turn you down. I'd rather just, like,
that makes sense actually. Yeah.
It's kind of why I don't join lots of groups or things, because I know I'm going to let you down when it comes time to come to a meeting. So yeah, I'll just avoid the disappointment, and I don't know if that makes sense, but I think everybody's a little happier that way.
Definitely. I don't know if you heard that horn in the background.
Oh, I didn't know that's what it was. What is that?
Oh, it's a chew toy that our puppy Saoirse has gotten a hold of.
I just thought you had like a squeaky easel or something.
No, it's a little bit of a circus sound.
Yeah, that's all right. That's that's the kind of thing that I think you notice more. Because like I said, I do kind of a lot of things on, especially lately, Zoom for work and things like that, and I can always hear a lawnmower outside my studio. I think a lot of times when I'm doing anything or filming anything here in the studio, you actually don't hear it much, but I kind of do. So it's more maybe disturbing to me than somebody else. Mm-hmm. I think that's what it's like. I mean, whether it's a puppy or whether it's a kid, I think those things like somebody else's kid, like my kids, not little anymore. So hopefully they're not screaming at 14 and 22. They shouldn't be. But when they were little, it never bothered me with other people's kids freaking out. I was more nervous about my own bothering other people than me being bothered.
Yes, that is somewhat of a concern with this dog. So if it's not bugging you, then I'll just let her.
No, I'm all right. I'm all right.
whatever she's going to do.
No, like I said, I don't. Yeah, that stuff to me is like it's kind of like on your end. I'm cool. I'm painting here in the afternoon, and it's really chill, and we're having a good little conversation. So yeah, I'm all right.
Nice.
I'm all right. So hey, what do you think about this reference photo? Do you? I mean, obviously, I know you do a lot of landscapes and stuff like that. Would you normally work from a photograph or not? You do more plein air, right?
I do both.
You do both.
I paint a lot more often from a variety of photos than I do plein air. I keep trying to do more direct observation sort of painting, but it's been difficult the last few months. I'm not really too concerned about pushing myself to do it because all the events that I was going to take part in sort of were canceled. So it was more just for, to see how much it would change my image making.
Okay.
And if I could achieve some of the same effects and light out in the field as I can when I'm sort of analyzing my reference.
Yeah, well, it's such a, I don't know if you find that. I mean, I'm kind of the same way as you. I love painting plein air. I really love it. But the way my schedule works, I don't do it as often as I like. But then again, there's this weird thing with people sometimes about working from a photograph. For some reason, they think it's less than authentic. And I saw a show, it's many years ago, I don't remember now, at the Metropolitan in Manhattan, and it was Thomas Eakins, and they were showing, so it's late 1800s, and they're showing his photo references. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh man, that's really cool. Like, you don't think about that with a guy like that, but early days of photography, he was saying, oh, hey, this is kind of cool. Let me get these pictures of these wrestlers that I'm having a hard time capturing, moving around. I was like, that's pretty cool.
Well, there is sort of a notion out there that using reference for some pieces is sort of cheating in a way.
Yeah.
But I've never really subscribed to that. It's
still got to make a good painting.
Yeah. I think if you're going to be outside on a 90-degree day with a storm approaching and bugs everywhere and think to yourself, I think I can really capture it because I just want to be really true to whatever. Then it's going to kind of bite you in the ass. I mean, I totally understand trying to maintain something true, and there's a certain aspect, like a punk rock aspect, to doing the plein air work.
Especially worse the weather is, but I question like sometimes, in social media and stuff like that, it's like, were you really out there 3 hours? Or maybe that's the cynic in me. Or is it just look really cool that it's, 30 degrees out and hail's coming down? I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to speculate and talk shit about what some. I know that I'm completely full of it, and that I would be the first person to be like, these bugs are crazy. Fuck this. I'm out of here.
Right.
I mean, I can only assume.
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, listen, whatever it is, what it is, but yeah, I don't know. You take the time that you have to work and you do your best with it. I don't know. Sometimes I don't think it's one or the other, but I kind of find sometimes with photo references, I'm not a photographer, right? So and for a long time, I actually used to take photos with the, now your phone is a better camera than most little point and shoots that you can buy. But I used to use like an old, really, really shitty point and shoot because it kind of, any slight movement and it blurred stuff. And it made me really use the photo for what we say it is, a reference, right? Not this thing to copy, but this thing to, use to just kind of remind me, this stuff was roughly here, it was roughly there, it kind of looked like this, and and then you wing it from there and see what happens.
So, did you teach this sort of thing at your college? Or?
I kind of taught everything, man. I when I first got out of grad school, I got my first teaching gig at in Queens at St. John's University.
All right.
And I taught there for, I don't remember, that was back in the 90s. It was like 5 or 6 years. And I started teaching a little watercolor. Well, I wouldn't even say it was a watercolor class. It was called something like water media. So it was anything, water-based.
Okay.
And and it was cool. And, I ended up going from there. They just gave me opportunities after opportunities. So I ended up teaching painting, drawing, figure painting, figure drawing. And then the funny thing about it is they called me in. I guess I was about 1 semester in or 2 semesters in teaching. And the chair calls me in at the end of the first, fall semester. And he says, "Hey, Jimmy, can you teach photography? We got our professor going on maternity leave." And I said, "Yeah, I can do that." And so I promptly, that was before cell phones, I promptly called my brother, who was in Syracuse at the time, studying photography at Syracuse University. And I said, "Hey, Mike, send me all the syllabuses you have from Photo 101. And he says, "What the hell do you need that for?" I said, "I'm teaching it next semester." And he said, "You got it."
That's the way it's done.
Yeah. And so, but they were super cool about that. I wasn't totally, I jumped at the chance, but I was also like, listen, I'm going to have to, really kind of bone up on this, man. I've got some experience in college myself with photography, but, not a photographer. But they let me do that, which led to them letting me teach a jewelry design course. Yeah, it's cool stuff. They were open to anything almost.
Wow.
Yeah, and mind you, when I say like the photography and jewelry design too, with the caveat that it was like, it was Photo 101 and it was darkroom. That was on that was the 90s, right? So it was kind of cusp of, probably a digital SLR at the time was probably like $5,000 or something for, a low level one. So I was teaching darkroom, and then once you got through the technical stuff, it's everything you and I are dealing with right now, composition and, and color and subject matter and, all that stuff that's just art.
Huh. So how did that go from you teaching there to you working with who is it again? Winsor Newton and
and Liquitex. Yeah, they're actually sister companies. So I worked for the two of them. That was kind of a bit of a circuitous route. I was also, after Queens, I taught at some smaller colleges here in New Jersey, and then a guy who was a colleague of mine and still a friend today. Said, "Hey, Jimmy, he somehow had a relationship with Liquitex. I forget how they got connected." And he said they invited me to judge this. It was called the Liquitex Excellence in Art Awards, I think, at the time. And they said they want somebody else to come and judge. You want to do it? And so I said, yeah. And I kind of had a good time there that day. It was fun. And the person that ended up being my boss at the time was it turned out she lived around the corner from me, had a kid the same age. So we kind of, I don't know, just kind of got talking and hit it off. And I was looking for a little bit of a change. And I don't know, a week later I sent an email and, I thought they'd never answer me. I just said, "Hey, thanks for, the day. And anything ever comes up, give me a shout, any other opportunities." And she said, "Hey, I'm writing a job description. that I think might be good for you. You want to come in, and yeah, and that's how it led to it.
Okay.
But it was weird, Chris. It was one of those things where, like, as I was interviewing for it, I was like, I felt like, oh, this is going well, and then I was like, oh crap, do I want it to go well? I'm like, I've been working at a college and summers off, and I'm like, oh, what the hell am I doing, man? Can I make this move to a corporation kind of thing? But it's pretty chill though. It's not anything stuffy, and I still get to teach and paint and make art for the company. So
great.
Yeah. So I don't really have any complaints. But I like what did you have down there for a base? Was that like a magenta?
It was as bright pink as I could find.
Yeah. I like that. I went darker this time. A lot of times I'll go brighter as well. And then I was, like I said, when we started this, I was like, oh man, am I going gouache? And like 2 seconds before we went on, I was like, oh, I'm going oil. So didn't have time to lay anything else down. But yeah, I dig that. It's kind of fun seeing like what'll happen when you put these bold colors down, and feels like some of the work is done for you as well.
Yeah, I'm always struggling with exactly how much to leave, and I'm still kind of getting a hang of what I want to remove, because that's a really big part of my recent work is removing stuff.
Okay.
And I'm kind of embracing the former sculptor in me. I did that for about a decade. I made molds, and I did some figurative work, and I taught some foundation stuff at the Lem Academy College of Fine Art.
Oh, Connecticut? Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah.
So you were making molds, you say? So you're pouring bronze plaster, or what are you doing then?
All of it.
All of it, yeah.
Yeah, I did a little bit of everything, and then I went and was a fixer for a little while at different studios for other sculptors, and essentially I just kind of swooped in and did all the difficult work for them, and they got to sign their name.
So I didn't know that term, the fixer. I think that's some like television show. I was thinking that you cleaned up after Bob made a mess or something.
Yeah,
not that.
No, it wasn't that interesting. It was
nothing nefarious.
No, it was long days of studying photos for portraits.
Okay.
Yeah. And I kind of got burnt out on it, and I saw that a lot of things were going to go to computers, and I'm a little bit of I don't know what you'd call it, a neo-Luddite, where I'm okay with technology, but I try to find ways to eliminate portions of it in my life. So I thought, because we still were on the road, we had the RV, we went to New Orleans, and I was convinced to try to paint and sell my work out on the street. So
okay.
That's how I started this about a little over 9 years ago.
Wow. So now you say you made that move. So you were already married at the time. I guess so.
Yeah.
Older. Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's wild. I mean, that's I'm sure it's got its like anything, right? Everything has an up and down to it. But there's such a romance to being on the road. That's got to be pretty interesting, because I mean, like I said, I have a bit of wanderlust, although I'm certainly rooted here in my home. But man, if I haven't been on the road or traveling for a while, I just get itchy.
Me too, man.
Yeah. But I'm also, it's funny. I love conversations like this because you said you're sort of a neo-Luddite, and I can feel what you're saying there as well, because I mean, certainly even more so with COVID, I think a lot of people have been forced to embrace technology who might not have. But in the same respect, I can, when we're done talking, I'll turn my phone off. It's, what is it? Be 5:30 here. I'll turn off my phone and not look at it until tomorrow. And quite honestly, if it weren't for work and other commitments, I can go a whole weekend, without it. Especially if I'm going somewhere with my wife or kids, I'll be like, and I'll say, hey, you guys got your phone on you in case we need it? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, I'm leaving mine home, and I kind of enjoy it.
That's great. I happen to have an addictive personality. So, because I have an iPhone, which I can basically get any kind of video game I want to distract myself. When the pandemic hit and we were quarantined in Arizona, just outside of Sedona, I just kind of gave in, and I downloaded a bunch of games one morning while I was listening to some other podcast, and I began to play this one like Wild West game, and it was the worst kind of game for me, because you have to run around and collect things, bring them back, and just kind of hoard materials and resources. And I was in it. Like, I went, I got up especially early before I even woke up to paint, just to play some stupid Wild West game.
Yeah.
That's funny. Like with all the other games, I have to delete them all.
Yep. Yeah, but I mean, keep in mind though, when I say I can, leave it, I can, but that also doesn't mean that I can't get sucked into, into something as well. By no means am I immune to that kind of stuff, because I mean, whoever makes those things that's smarter than me, knows how to do those things that push your endorphins or your serotonin or whatever it is that makes you go, oh yeah, and I'm well, it's funny, we went, right after this Campfire image was taken, when I told you I was on the trip with my brother, I had then gone away with my wife and kids up to the Catskills, and we rented this little place on Airbnb, and in the basement it had this game. It was called Papa Shot. So it was one of those, side-by-side basketball games. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would work up a sweat, and my shoulder was sore by the end of the week because I had to have the high score. My wife is like, "What the hell are you doing down there? Like, we're making dinner, I'm like, come on, one more. Gotta nail it."
Yeah, another friend of mine said that he thought it might be generational, that the Gen X crowd were always so into being independent and doing everything themselves, that when it came time to deal with stress, they sort of took on all that themselves, and then that kind of rolled over into being masters at ridiculous things like video games and other kind of small competitive games or sports. Yeah. At the time, I wasn't really sure if I was getting his the concept he was trying to get across, but now that I think about it more and more, he might have something,
Yeah, there might be something. I mean, that's me. I mean, in terms of Gen X, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. You were kind of left to your devices more. I mean, I'm, being Gen X, and I was a kid in the, growing up in the, well, I was in high school in the later 80s, but in the 70s, it was like my mom was one of probably the first generation of people who went back to work. My father owned gas stations when I was a little kid. And then that ended. He had a partner, and that ended for various reasons. And then he ended up working like a bunch of different jobs until he, kind of got himself back up on his feet. So my mom went back to work. So yeah, I was left to kind of do whatever, which, now kids don't have the freedom as much, which is kind of odd.
Yeah.
Odd that a group of people who had a ton of freedom then went and had kids who feel that they're in danger every time they step out the door, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is probably why it's great that your kids are on the road and seeing tons of different stuff. I'm sure that gives them more of an independent streak, I would think, than most kids.
They do have a pretty good independent streak, but like all other kids, they still just want to hang out with their friends and avoid doing things that they have to do,
Yeah.
Some of the road homeschooling groups out there try to make it seem like it's a fix-all to grab your kids out and take them on adventures with you, and that they'll just naturally gravitate towards everything that you want and need them to, to cultivate a proper upbringing for themselves. And it doesn't always work like that,
Yeah, well, kind of like we said before.
They still have to be convinced.
Yeah. I mean, well, yeah. I don't know. But I think that's kind of part of. My wife and I have this discussion a lot. That's probably part of what we were just saying before. If you're a Gen X person who kind of, spent time on your own, like my parents were both working when I was a little kid, and and trying to put food on the table. And I don't want to say that to make it sound as if we were destitute. We certainly were not, but we went from my dad owning, 6 gas stations, to none of them, and working as a service writer at a car dealership, not making a lot, but then, working extra jobs. And so we never went without. And, I don't have any memories of like, oh man, dad didn't show up to the Little League game or something like that. I kind of look at it as that he was working, but then, it's easy to become an adult where you think you have to be at every little thing that your kid does. And there's good to that, but there's probably also some smothering as well. I think that's really deep for a campfire painting thing. I feel like we should be sitting around a campfire now, Chris.
Yeah, it does kind of inspire some deeper Jack Candy.
Yeah, Jack Candy, that's great. I haven't heard that in a while. I love it. But what was deep thoughts, right?
Yeah.
I feel, what am I? I'm good enough.
I used to know those when I was in high school in the mid 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a great memory for all of the Jack Candy stuff.
That's great.
And, yeah, I don't know if I even remember one anymore.
That's really funny.
Okay. So I like you have been able to keep it really kind of cheery, and I feel as though your piece, because of the greater variety of colors, a little bit more inviting. I'm taking a look at mine, and I'm trying to leave as much pink as possible, but it's feeling to me like a little bit of less of a bonfire and more of like a weird ritual fire. I'm not sure how to.
That's funny. But that's what's cool about this. I mean, it's funny to hear you say that, because I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh man, I think you're nailing it. Yeah, it's really interesting how we. I did this event, this this talk demonstration thing the other day, and it was mostly working for an art materials company. It's mostly beginners who are tuning in for stuff, and I said to them, I'm like, don't be too hard on yourself, because everybody else will do that for you. You don't need to beat yourself up too much.
Well, I think there's also something to holding yourself to a higher standard because you have good taste. And if you believe that you have good taste, you do something like what we're doing now. I mean, if unless you're completely delusional, which I know you're not, because I've seen your great many of sketchbook studies that you post on Instagram, then I think I think it all works.
I mean, well, listen, if it doesn't, right? I mean, I don't know. Back when I was still teaching, I don't know what how you have these things you come across, these little anecdotes, and you don't remember if you heard them from, a mentor or professor, or you read it in a book. But, I used to tell these students, I'm like, listen, if you make a bad painting, it's like, nobody died. That's right. So that's okay. And you're gonna live another day, so that's cool too. And chances are there's probably something good about it that you just cannot see at this moment because you're so in the thick of it, and just so pissed off at the thing you didn't do right that you wanted to do right. I don't know. I mean, if anything, with mine right now, what I like is that I've been talking to you, so I haven't been overthinking things, and it still feels loose to me. Which I don't know. That's why that's why I like your work, and other people I gravitate towards who have a sense of kind of a sense of an immediacy that even if they did work on it for 6 hours, maybe, it doesn't look like it, and it doesn't look overworked. And that to me is always my goal, whether I hit it or not. I almost had that happen as well.
That was a very special puppy moment.
Oh, that was the puppy. Okay.
Yes, it was. Okay, let me see if I can get this back centered again.
That looks pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah, no, you look all right. It's funny. I kicked my easel before. I don't know if you saw that. It started to tilt forward, so I was able to catch it though.
No, I didn't even catch that.
Yeah, I was able to snag it pretty quickly.
Yeah, she came and walked underneath it.
Oh man. So how, you said puppy? How old?
Oh, she is, I think, 12 weeks old now.
Okay.
We picked her up from a ranch in Rexburg, Idaho.
Okay.
When we're around Yellowstone.
Mm.
She is half black lab, half husky.
Oh wow.
So she's a little spitfire, and she definitely knows already how to tell you that she's dissatisfied with something.
Now, when you pick up a dog from a ranch,
yes.
is that your
That's
your
not
doing?
Code for it. That's not code for anything, Jim.
No, I didn't. I wasn't about to ask if you were smuggling anything.
Okay, no.
Oh, that's funny. No, I was. Oh, that's great. No, I was going to ask: is that you're doing, your wife's doing, your kids just going crazy until you gave in? What's the?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was most definitely the wife and kids.
Okay. All right.
We had another rescue dog before from New Orleans, and that dog was okay in the beginning, but then he got really crazy with me, and he always had, from the moment we got him, an issue with men, and men who have men who had beards like I did.
Yeah, okay.
And anyone with a deep voice. And so my brother-in-law took him, and I guess he found out that the dog has vision issues. So maybe that's what some of the problems were.
Yeah, freaking him out a bit.
Yeah, not sure, but my daughter's always wanted another dog. And so my wife felt that with the pandemic and everything, and the fact that they weren't really able to do any of the things that they had planned this whole year, that maybe we should try for a dog.
Yeah, there you go. Well, you said you had events planned. So what were you going to do? Were you going to take part in instructing, just showing up? What was your...
I was going to do some workshops, a plein air event in Field, the Kern County plein air event.
Okay.
And someone else wanted me to participate in some other outdoor plein air day. I think somewhere, let's say it was around Santa Barbara.
Okay.
Yeah. It seems like it was years ago.
It really does.
Was supposed to happen in the spring.
Yeah, no, it really does. I was just talking to someone this afternoon, and I can remember back in March saying to, I don't know if it was my wife or a friend or something, and I said, it's a good time. It's good at least that this is happening now in March. I mean, being here in New Jersey, I was like, it's not that nice now. Most people are inside. We'll be through this by the time summer rolls around. And obviously, I'm not great at predicting what'll happen with the pandemic. Yeah,
you're just trying to be optimistic.
I thought, and I thought I was, but yeah, I was way off base on that one, for sure. So here we are, still wondering, what's gonna be, gonna be what.
It wasn't that noticeable in a lot of the areas that we were in this past spring and summer, because we were out west, mostly in the middle of nowhere. So we really didn't have to deal with the stuff that you guys near New York did, or
Yeah, for sure. That was the big thing. I would often spend a lot of time in Manhattan for work, and also just, I mean, I can get to the train station in a mile from my studio and house, which is right here, and be in Manhattan in an hour and 20 or something like that, or so yeah, we've always spent a good deal of time there, and that's been really odd not being able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw photos from other friends who sent me photos who live in Brooklyn and Queens, and yeah, it was absolutely nothing like I remember.
No, like a ghost town.
Yeah.
Yeah, really odd. That's why, kind of like you saying you're, out west and not dealing with it as much. That's why when I went on this trip with my brother where I took this campfire photo, we usually, we've been doing this trip, as I said, for 20 years on motorcycles, and we just kind of, pick a direction probably the week of, with no plans, no idea where we're going to stay and be, and just go. And this year, that wasn't really possible. So it was the first time in 20 years of taking this trip together that we had a base camp and then just kind of made little trips. But being up in the Adirondacks, we were in a county where the COVID cases were 6 of them in total from, the start of it. So while we were careful, we didn't have to have the concern that you have in a metropolitan area.
Yeah.
Which makes it a lot more enjoyable to not, worry so much about all that kind of stuff. And I wish I could see your painting in person right now.
I hope that it's more impressive in video.
No, I mean, I think it looks really good.
Right now, I'm having second thoughts about going so thick so quick.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know. Mine's a bit thick too, and that's why I was a little bit apprehensive about oil going into this, because it is my first girl, I like to say. That's how I learned to paint, was oil. But for the past few years, I've been using mostly gouache. Just kind of convenience and quick and all that kind of.
Is that just because of the nature of what you're doing and posting on social media? Because it looks like you mostly do studies out of sketchbooks on paper.
Yeah, so pretty much every day I'm doing something in a sketchbook, which is just kind of my daily habit, getting up in the morning. It's like, I don't know, it's like kind of getting out of bed and stretching type of thing, or whatever, getting your first cup of coffee or tea. So I usually do something in my sketchbook, and but then I kind of got into gouache simply because before all this stuff, I would travel a lot for my job, and I would go to like trade shows, and I go to other states, other countries, stuff like that. So I just got to taking a little gouache kit, really compact little kit. Actually, this that I have this canvas sitting on is a little pochade box, and I could throw that in a backpack and just hit the road, and easy cleanup, easy, setups, or I don't know, just really kind of convenience, I guess.
Okay.
Plus, you could with gouache, you can still get opaque and do layering like you would with oil, and cool stuff like that. So yeah, I kind of got into it for that reason.
I got into gouache when I first started painting because it was all I had. And
yeah.
I was completely broke, so I had to use up all of my materials in order to make enough work to sell out on the street to get more money to buy more materials, and that's how it went. And for a while there, when Michaels was still selling gouache, which I don't know if they do anymore.
You'd think I would probably know that, working for an art materials company, but
yeah, I haven't seen. Yeah, I don't think I've seen gouache at Michaels in a good 6 months, but they had a huge sale. This is maybe back in 2011, and I was able to get just basically like a mismatch box of paint.
Oh, all right, that works.
For just a few dollars, and so I taught myself mostly how to do the water soluble painting, because that was the only thing I had available. I had my wife's oil paint from college that we still used to drag around with us because she liked to paint from time to time. But I didn't really think that I was ready to go and waste her materials on painting oysters and beer bottles.
Yeah. Yeah, but I like the idea of, I think that's more common than not, artists working out of necessity. It's like I used to work really big too, years ago, many years ago, and I don't. This thing I'm working on right now is 8x10, and a lot of I do a lot of little 5x7 stuff, and tiny stuff. I can get a lot done, and I just gave away, I think it was 16 canvases that were painted in like the early 2000s to a friend and former student of mine. Just kind of let him go, and he was like, "Man, are you sure?" I was like, "You can tear off the canvases and use the stretchers. You can paint over them. You can do what you want. I'm kind of done with them, and I know I'm never going to show them again. They're kind of a different style, and I'm ready to let go." And it was a really freeing exercise.
It's fun to purge.
Yeah, I agree with you. He was actually probably more apprehensive. He's like, "Man, are you sure you want to give me these. I was like, yeah, man, just go for it. Just, you're painting big, man. You haven't got to that point where you're wondering what the hell you're going to do with all this stuff and how you're going to store it. It's like, because I had gotten, okay, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, that story reminded me about an impression I had just scrolling through your feed on Instagram.
Okay.
And it looked like a lot of your work was so different, conceived different, executed in a different manner, left finished or like pushed a little further, that one could argue that it might be work that was done by different people.
Oh, absolutely. No, for sure. I went to grad school at the New York Academy of Art in Manhattan, and it was 2 years of figurative academy type stuff. And listen, I had a good time there. I enjoyed it. I met a lot of great people, but I have to say, I think I've spent most of my life still kind of fighting that a bit, because I think if you have an academy-like training, it's easy to almost be like a dog with a bone, or a dog that gets, praised. If you can, I don't know, you were talking about taste before, Chris, and if you're talking about somebody who maybe doesn't know a lot about art, right? And we can debate, what that means and aesthetics and all that. But a lot of times, in people who don't spend a lot of time looking at art, if you make something that looks like something, they're going to go, wow, that's great. That's art. And then you kind of got to sit back and go, well, I don't know, man. Is what I made anything that's interesting and creative, or did I just mimic something, and I got a little praise for it, so I keep doing the same thing over and over again. And which is why I was saying before, I like your work and other people's work who manage to somehow stay loose through the process. I don't know. I'm attracted to that very much so. And I used to paint in a much, much different way. And that's some of those canvases I gave away. Some of them, not all, but they were actually things that they're on their third life. Actually, these beautifully handmade stretchers. I received them when I was teaching at a college years ago, and someone left them there, and they said, "Hey, we're clearing out this space. These have been sitting here, nobody's claimed them. If you want them, they're yours." And so I stripped them down, used the stretchers, and painted on them, and then I gave them to this guy, and so they're making their way through the world. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I don't know if you do this, but I'm kind of into reusing old panels and canvases, and I like the idea that there are several different paintings or past lives underneath.
Yeah.
And that when it finally finds a home somewhere, that the person may or may not know about all the other history to the piece, and that possibly someday, if someone got bored, they could look at it and kind of discover all the other stuff.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you on that. That's kind of how I got to, well, as we said before, you're working on this. You went with this really high intensity pink ground, and I went with this dark one, but often I'm going with a more of a ground like you started with, and that really kind of started from years ago. From taking old canvases of mine and painting on top and saying, oh wow, look at that little cool piece of color. Like I would have never thought to put that pink there. I wouldn't, if I started with a white canvas, I might have never done that. But then you all of a sudden paint over something, and you get these little funky kind of things that happen that are surprising. I think that kind of taught me more. I don't want to say more, but kind of more about color than maybe a color theory class did. That's being a little bit of hyperbole, but just unexpected stuff.
Yeah, if you can sit through more than 10 minutes of color theory, more power to you.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough one. I mean, I think, it's like I can get pretty geeky about pigments and things. Like I like the origin of stuff and where it comes from. But I think with color theory, I think the problem, and I don't know what it's like, for anybody in a college class right now, or just today as opposed to when I went to school. But I think you have to have a balance of color theory and the actual practice at the same time, so you can link the two things together.
Yes.
Because sometimes it's just okay, it's theory and it's a color chart and a value thing, and you're muddling through that, but you got to at the same time be in a class where you're putting that to use and going, all right, cool, I can see why that blue and that orange there are playing off of each other. Now I get it. Otherwise, yeah, it's just it feels like a lot of cruel work.
Yes. Experience definitely for me is more fruitful than words. So if I can get the concept and immediately work with it, I'm going to be able to grasp it a lot quicker. And anything that I just sort of read about and then don't pursue, within minutes, I lose it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's funny on this little camping trip I was on. As I was saying when we started, this was an old Boy Scout camp, and I found an old Boy Scout manual, and it was talking about all the essential Boy Scout knots. And I've always all my life, I never really knew how to make really good knots, and I don't know. I just always thought like that was a cool skill. Like, you should be able to make a knot, right? Anytime I made a knot, putting something in the back of my pickup truck, I would drive somewhere thinking like, oh, it's going to fly out. I know it. I don't know what I was doing making that knot. So I found this Boy Scout book and I read about the knots, but I finally put myself to practicing it every day for the last 5 weeks. And now I can make these 8 different knots. And I'm like, man, I just never put myself to the test of putting the theory to practice before, and now
That's great.
Yeah, it is. Now it's like this middle-aged man thing I just did, which I'm like, but I'm waiting. Here's the problem, Chris. I'm like, so I learned how to make these knots. I'm waiting for someone to be like, hey, I got to tie this down. Who knows how to make a really good knot? I'm waiting for that moment. It hasn't come yet. I really want somebody to need me. That says something about me, Chris. It says something really disturbing about me, probably.
Hey. No, I mean, you're always preparing for a future crisis, and movies from the 80s tell you that it's vital that at every stage you pay attention to everything that's happening around you, because something is going to cycle back through, and
the Russians are coming. They're coming. That's right. Every 80s movie. Yeah. You're going to have to head off into the mountains with your teenage friends. And what was that? Red Dawn? You gotta protect everybody. Yeah. It's funny. We started with this campfire thing, and I mentioned I have a wood stove here in my studio. So I really actually enjoy just kind of the chopping wood out here behind my studio, and the neighbors always laugh because I think I definitely have more wood than I need. But then every once in a while, just about 2 weeks ago, one of them yelled across the street, hey, we're having a little fire pit in the backyard and we don't have any firewood. I said, who did you come to now?
Yep.
I was like, all right, go ahead, go grab some, it's cool. And we had a good laugh, but it was it's kind of funny.
Yeah, when you can be ahead of the puck.
Yeah.
Might as well be.
Nice reference there. I like that.
I don't know where I heard that. It might have been actually from, I think, Kevin Smith, who's a director, who was speaking about something that I believe Wayne Gretzky said.
Uh-huh.
So this is deep hockey reference.
Yep. Kevin Smith's a New Jersey guy.
Yeah.
He's got his little comic book shop right in the next town over from me.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Red Bank. Forget what it's called. Secret Stash.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, we should get some. Can you get some sort of endorsement? We just gave him a plug. Just give him store a plug.
It's hard because the ground is so warm, and I have shunned away from using green too much in this piece because I'm not great with green.
No, you know what? I heard you say that on one of your other. That's interesting. Why is that? Do you know why that is? Or do you just?
Oh, I'm pretty sure it's because I don't see the full range of colors. So okay. I have a specific comfort level.
Yeah.
With certain color temperatures and relationships, and I've always, since when I was even a kid, anything that's not nature that has green in it, I've always been slightly repulsed by it.
Interesting. Yeah, well, this is super warm though. This, it's kind of what I was going back to saying before. I'm certainly not a photographer, and I was like, I just want to get a reference of this. This might make something cool to paint later on. But it wasn't even when I started this fire on this camping trip. As I said, we were up in the Adirondacks, and my brother's brother-in-law was about 2.5 hours north of us. So he was going to come join us for a day, and the road we were off of to this camp was about 2 miles back, and it was pitch black, nobody around. So it was hot out, but I made this fire almost as like a signal fire. Yeah, and I thought it'd just be kind of nice to, I don't know, pull up to somewhere to see a fire. So
it is.
Yeah, it did not have yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, especially when you're in the middle of nowhere,
right?
When you see anyone having a fire anywhere, you feel a little bit better.
Yeah, life.
Yeah.
There was no practical reason to have this fire that night. By the time I got done making it, I was sweating my ass off. I was like, oh my God, why did I do this? But the funny thing, and just what you said though, he pulled up and he was like, oh man, this is so cool. You got a fire going. I was like, yeah, we do, and got some food too. He's like, all right, I'm ready. So yeah, it was kind of cool. But you get this weird kind of
hunter-gatherer impulse.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we all were, right? Just trying to find our way and keep everybody safe, which I guess we're still doing. Yeah, I like the warmth down here though. I think fires are kind of tricky. I think they're both. I don't know. They're tricky and not at the same time for me as our most landscape things, because we could. I mean, obviously you and I gave you two references, and you took the slightly different one than I did, and then I made up a bunch of stuff here anyway. And when it comes down to it, it's like the thing would have changed in real life 2 seconds later anyway, and you can fortunately get away with that. Like any landscape, if the trees going a little to the left, well, it could have done that, which is I always found kind of cool.
It's definitely a relief sometimes. Some days. I you know what? I think I'm probably close to done. There's a lot of paint on mine. I'm not sure about yours, but I
pretty good
wrote it on there.
Yeah, so I've got a pretty good amount too.
I think I'm ready to sign it actually. So.
Oh, interesting. You know what? I'm good with you calling it done too, because this okay. would be a point. This would be a point where if we weren't having this discussion, and I would probably stop right here, and take a break, let my eyes go. But it's interesting about signing. What I normally do a lot of times is if I get to a stage like this when I kind of feel like I'm 80-90%, I usually will sign something, and then and that's kind of a signal to me that I think it's done. It doesn't mean I won't do something else, but yeah, but I don't know. There's something about the signature.
I think that's a good policy, Jimmy.
What's that?
I think that's a good policy.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just some kind of little signal to me, and I don't know. But I think let me see if I have a tiny brush here. You got to have the right brush, man. Otherwise, it's like if you make that clunky signature, that's never any good.
Yeah.
It's like,
I just finished the series of landscapes from Montana, and on the very last one, I did the clunkiest, stupidest looking signature, and I could not stop laughing.
Yeah, it's like you're there, and then you just blow it. And there's always, like, to me too, with the signature, as funny as it is, something like that. Let's see if I can do it down here. I have more of a block print signature, so it's not too bad. But it's also the right color too, right? You want to read it, but you don't want it to be like the brightest, most saturated thing on there.
Indeed.
Then it seems like, oh wow, you need more attention. You really need a lot of attention. But it's a funny thing, you do want. I used to tell students that, like, listen, I think it's good to put it on there. You want to let people know who it is if they're if you're not around.
Well, speaking of attention, how about you, even though I will put this in the description, can you tell people how to find you on the internet?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And before I do that, I totally botched that. I'm gonna go over that. It's horrible. But yeah, they can find me on Instagram at Jimmy Leslie Art. Simple as that.
Okay.
That's where they can find me. I'm on no other social media. That's it. And yeah.
You can totally change your signature before you send me the final image.
Yeah, I will.
Video.
I will. I will. Just as I said it, I'm like, oh my God, that looks like a 2-year-old did that. It's horrible. This was a lot of fun, Chris.
Okay, Jim.
Yeah. All right, buddy. I enjoyed it. Thanks so much for inviting me on.